Welcome back! Today we are doing something so fun. Book club! How many autism books are on your to-read list? Seriously, I know my list used to be really long. These book club videos are all about helping you out. You vote on what book I read the book, and then I summarize it for you. It's fun! I love it! I want you to have the best information to make good decisions for your child. How can you have a say in what book I summarize? Join my email list. There's a link below. They get to vote every month on what book would be most helpful to have a summary and discussion about. So join us. There's a link below. Join my email list. And if you like these types of videos, please let me know in the comments. Also, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel for the best science-based information about autism. Thank you for being here. And now, without further ado, this month's book club is the Nemechek protocol. It has 3 components: inulin, olive oil, fish oil. Very simple. So let's understand it. This book is a great book. However, the top of the cover, it says, fact number 1, miracles do happen. I disagree with this probably the most in the book. So regaining health and happiness of your child is not a miracle. What's the definition of a miracle? It's something that is surprising, that's not explained by science, and therefore it's the work of a divine being. This is not a miracle. So having your child be healthy is not a miracle. It might feel like it, but science, published science in the US say that 9% of those in the US heal completely from autism. And this is the work that I do with parents. We focus on the science. It's not a miracle. So great book, but that part of focusing on a miracle is not a miracle. It's good science. So let's get started. The book it's a great book for a beginner. And the reason why is this is a protocol. So it's not going to work for everybody. For the people who the symptoms and the science align directly with the protocol, it's going to work fantastically. But if your child has more symptoms than just what's addressed by this protocol, then they'll get better, but not fully. Makes sense, right? And for some people who try this protocol, it doesn't work and it could make things worse. And that's because what the protocol does and what that child needs are very different. So it's a great beginner's book. I certainly would recommend getting a copy of it. I'll put a link down below for a copy of. The one thing that is really great about this book is it starts off with a glossary. So if you're new to autism and some of these words and abbreviations, that's a great place to start. And then it goes into the focus of the protocol. And it's really focusing on bacterial overgrowth. So bacteria that should stay in the large intestines migrate up into the small intestines. And that's when you have small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, SIBO. And so this protocol really focuses on addressing that. That's the science. That's the first aspect of the science for this protocol. And then it shifts, after addressing some of the gut health, it shifts to brain health, decreasing brain inflammation. And that's how the protocol is getting results. That's the science behind the protocol. And there's a chapter here and it talks about slipping into autism. And what's discussed here is the Clostridia family. So again, Clostridia is something that is found commonly in children with autism. Not every child with autism has Clostridia, but many do. And so when there is Clostridia, they produce propionic acid, which then can really impact developmental health. So this is a way that bacteria in the gut can influence brain development in a not positive way. So there's a good chapter on Clostridia. So if your child is dealing with Clostridia, this would certainly be a good book to pick up and at least understand some more of the science behind what's going on. And I do like there's a few parts in this book that Dr. Nemechek talks about the catching up process. So developmentally, when these health issues are addressed, different infections, overgrowth, a variety of things, when they're addressed, then the child can be healthy. And there is this great, it's a glorious period of learning and catching up developmentally and academically and socially, and it's natural. It's not something that you have to put a lot of effort in and have a lot of different therapies and do 60 hours of therapies and nonstop. No, it's this catching up period where learning is fun for the child, and it's absolutely glorious. So he does touch upon this throughout the book in certain spots. And I think it's really great for parents to read that and to say, wow, okay, this slipping into autism is something that everybody talks about, right? Like, oh my goodness, all right, now we have autism. But what really isn't talked about is the other side. When a child gets healthy and happier and catches up, that actually is a part of autism. Just many parents don't get to experience that. So it's good to see it written down in black and white. You could hold it in your hand and really say, wow, okay, yes, slipping into autism is something that occurs, but there is something on the other side that many parents have experienced. So I really like that aspect of the book. Not many books touch upon that. Okay, so the protocol. So the Nemechek protocol, 3 things like I mentioned: fish oil, olive oil, and inulin. If the child is over 10, then instead of inulin, he prefers to use prescription medication to address the small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. Let's look at a definition for autism based upon his words. So to quote Dr. Nemechek, autism is the consequence of excessive brain inflammation in addition to toxicity from the overproduction of propionic acid from intestinal bacterial overgrowth. So he feels you target the intestinal bacterial overgrowth, reduce that, and brain inflammation will naturally decrease, right, if you've decreased the source of the inflammation. And then he also has the fish oil and the olive oil to help with brain health. So that's his overall plan. His treatment has 2 phases. The first is the reduction of propionic acid through the reversal of bacterial overgrowth. And then the second phase is the reduction of pro-inflammatory cytokines production and really more focus on the brain health. So you can see it's a simple approach. And if your child has small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, this is a great approach. If your child does not have that as an issue, then you likely will not see much of an effect, at least from the small intestinal bacterial overgrowth aspect of his protocol. Your child might get some benefit from increasing healthy fats and stuff like that, of course, but you won't see that drastic change like some kids do. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about inulin, because this might be new to some parents. So just to quote from the book here, inulin fiber does not kill intestinal bacteria. Instead, it works like a fertilizer. Inulin fiber nourishes the healthy bacteria that rightfully should be living in the small intestine. The invading bacteria from the colon are not nourished by inulin. So that's his approach to resolving this bacterial overgrowth. You give more inulin and it will feed the bacteria that are supposed to be in the small intestine and basically starve out the bacteria that should not be in the small intestine. So that's how he resolves the SIBO. He then shifts into DHA fish oils. He prefers the children take it in pill or liquid form. There are some gummies, but he really prefers the pills or the liquids. And there are 2 brands that he recommends. It's Now Foods and Nordic Naturals. I'll put some links down below just so you can see the label and where you can get them. And then the next part of the protocol is to avoid certain oils. So things like soybean oil, sunflower oil, corn oil, the oils that are high in omega-6, which are inflammatory. So obviously you don't want to give something that's inflammatory when that is the problem. So he finds what's acceptable for him for healthy fats is the canola oil, coconut oil, and palm kernel oil. So that is the healthy fats that he prefers children eat. He doesn't go into too much more of diet changes. He does say how gluten-free is a good thing, but that's not really part of his protocol. And the third aspect of his protocol is the extra virgin olive oil. He prefers it come from California. And so he recommends this olive oil as part of his protocol to reduce systemic inflammation. And that is a very simple protocol, right? So it's 3 things. You could buy the book and those 3 supplements, ingredients, probably for $60 or so. So it's a very cost-effective way to start. This book does answer different questions like, what happens if my child is experiencing symptoms from starting the Inulin, and how much should I start off with, and what's the ultimate dose? Those kinds of questions he does address in this book here. And the last thing about this book that is really nice is he has a chapter about prevention. So sometimes parents are asking questions, or soon-to-be parents are asking questions, what can I do either before pregnancy to ensure health of my child, or what can I do while I'm pregnant to make sure we don't have these issues to deal with once the baby's here. So he does go into that a little bit, and I think it's a great book for a beginner. But again, this isn't miracles. This is not a miracle. A miracle seems unattainable. Like, just that it's going to be really difficult. And regaining health doesn't have to be like that. It's not out of your control. It's not like a surprise. This isn't a miracle. Getting your child back to their health is not a miracle. It's science. There's published science out there, and the most important step is aligning the science with your child's symptoms, so that whatever you do, whatever treatment you do, is going to address their symptoms based on science. So I certainly enjoyed this book. I think it's a great reference for people to have, but it's not a miracle. It's science.